Welcome to the Practicing Drummer Podcast. My name is Craig, and in this episode, I'm bringing you a conversation I had with Dan Weiss in May of 2023. Dan is a drummer and tabla player living in Brooklyn. He's got a unique musical voice that draws from jazz, Indian classical, progressive rock, hip-hop, metal, and so much more. In addition to his varied work as a sideman, he's also highly regarded as a band leader and composer. Be sure to check out the Dan Weiss Trio and his band Starebaby. Dan's also a dedicated practicer, to say the least, and he's an open book on Instagram and Patreon, so if you're not already following him, there's so much inspiration to be had in both places. I've known Dan for a few years, but it was great to finally ask him some detailed questions about his personal routines, his playing, and his early development on both drum set and tabla. With that, let's get right into it with Dan Weiss. Hey Dan, what's up? Thanks for doing this.
What's up, Craig? Thanks for having me on here. Pleasure.
Yeah, of course. Have you gotten your practice in already today?
Yeah, I did. That's a morning thing usually for me.
What's your usual routine these days? Do you always try to get it in the morning so you can just get your other stuff done throughout the day?
Yeah, I get it in the morning. Usually I'll first do the tabla, and then I'll go down to the drum set.
You do the tabla up in the apartment there?
Yeah, I do it in the apartment. And lately I've been doing like an hour, and then I'll go down to the drums and maybe do an hour or two, and then do some other stuff. But yeah, it's pretty important for me to practice at that time of day. If I only do one practice session, it will be then in the morning. If I'm lucky enough to get another one in, it could be later, but definitely I like doing it in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. I find that too. I try to get mine done right in the morning so that it's just kind of wiped from my mind. I've already accomplished that big goal for myself, and then don't have it kind of looming for the rest of the day.
Yeah, man, this kind of sets my day up. If I get it in, I feel better about things.
Yeah, for sure.
If I don't get it in, then something doesn't feel right to me.
So you were the first person I thought of when I wanted to do this interview series, because you were just so dedicated to practicing as not even almost a way of life, but as a way of life. Do you remember when practicing got that serious for you?
It was always serious, and I was always a practicer, but it went to the next level in terms of what it meant. When I started studying with my tabla teacher, whose name is Samir Chatterjee, the significance that it had, and like the meaning maybe changed a little bit once I started with him.
Yeah. How old were you when you did start with him?
I was 20.
Was that when you were in college then, or after college?
Yeah. I was in college, late college.
Can you talk a little bit about that process of getting into tabla? I'm curious, and I think a lot of other people are curious too, what your inspiration was to start studying tabla, and then what that whole process was like of finding your teacher and guru, and anything you can share about that early journey for you.
So I had been listening to the music. I liked the music as a, late teen or mid-teen. I remember first getting Ravi Shankar at Monterey Festival, getting that CD and really being into it. And then that was really into Coltrane back then, and as I still am, he's my favorite. And I knew that he was into Indian music, so I wanted to just investigate a little bit. And then I remember going to a Berkeley summer camp when I was 15 or 16.
Oh,
for
cool.
Like a six-week summer camp.
Okay.
Which actually was at that summer camp where I switched my grip from match to traditional. We could talk about that later.
Oh yeah. And
then at that summer camp, I saw a video of Alain Rocca playing tabla, and it really kind of blew my mind. I think prior to that, I had a great drum teacher. His name was Jeff Krause. We would do a lot of stuff, and he got me started with frame drums, right? Just playing the frame drum and kind of Arabic style. And then I started studying frame drums with a great drummer, percussionist named Jamie Haddad. I'm sure you know him.
Oh, yeah. I remember. He was at Berkeley when I was out there.
Yeah. So, and we were doing more Carnatic rhythms on the frame drum. And after a while, he's like, you should just play tabla. I was like, all right. And he gave me my teacher's number, and that was it. It was pretty easy. And I remember I called him up, and I started out in the group class, and then, I was practicing a lot, and he knew I was serious. So after a couple months, he took me out of that, and I just started studying privately with him.
And was that in the city or back in New Jersey?
That was the city at that point, yeah. And then he lived in Queens, so then I would go out to Queens, and then he moved to Jersey, so I'd go out to Jersey.
How was it when you first started? How long did it take you to start getting a good sound and to have some kind of what you felt like was a understanding?
Still trying. I remember really being frustrated just because the main sound, the na sound, the resonant sound that you associate with Tabla, that took a long time really to come with, any kind of sound. It was just like a thud at first for the first, I don't know, maybe couple months, but that's not even the first stroke that I learned. The first stroke was the bass drum stroke called ga or gay or, and that was very challenging as well, just to try to get an uneven sound. So,
and that has to have affected your drum set playing too, right? Did that make you think more about touch and the sound you got with the sticks?
It made me think about sound production, made me think about clarity, made me think about consistency of tone, all of those kind of things that I thought about it a little bit before that, but not. You always try to play things evenly, but
Sure.
It was a different thing. It was a different level of trying to make the sound sing,
Yeah, and I know now you kind of balance your practice out where you're practicing both tabla and drum set. But back then, did your tabla study pull you away from drum set, or did you keep it pretty balanced back then too?
Yeah, when I first started, I was practicing both. There have been different pockets, though, over the years where I've done, more of one, less of the other. And definitely for more than a few years, I was definitely practicing more tabla than drum set. Over the past several years, I would say it's been the other way around. But yeah, you talked about the difficulties. The difficulty really has been just trying to play both. It's tough. It's been a balancing act, and it's been a source of, not anymore really, but it has been in the past, just a source of struggle, just to try to balance. And, one instrument is really enough, really.
Yeah, so, you're tackling two pretty intense instruments and vocabularies too.
Yeah, I just see it like, all right, now it's just, I wouldn't be the drummer I would be if I didn't play the tabla, and vice versa. So I just try to see it like that, and not try to really have them compete necessarily for time.
Yeah, so they're not separate there's not like a line between them in your mind. And I know that because you have projects on the drum set where you practice tabla rhythms on the drum set. And have you ever taken stuff back the other way and applied some of the drum set approach to the tabla, or is that just not a thing for you?
Yeah, I have like a more separate kind of hand thing where it's not really, with the tabla, the syllables and the sounds, you'll have a phrase like kata 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 kata, which would be left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. But you don't really have kind of like independence kind of things, or things that are like different cycles with different hands per se in tabla, or certain things like that. So I might mess around with that, or I might mess around with certain bebop vocabulary maybe, and see how that sounds on the tabla, or certain things that are just more indigenous to the drums that haven't had any place in the tabla, and see how it sounds. So I've done a little bit of that, but more the other way, more putting the tabla compositions and the rhythms on the drum set.
So going back to something you said a couple of minutes ago, where it took you a really long time to get the sound out of the tabla, how long was that process for you? Just getting good sounds? And I know it's an ongoing thing, but I mean, just that early struggle of, wanting to learn, wanting to play, but really having to kind of slow down and get good sounds. How long did that take for you?
Maybe I was getting a decent sound after, I don't know about decent, but maybe something passable that still sounds like a beginner, maybe after 6 months to a year, maybe.
Oh, okay. So that's a pretty significant amount of time, but I think it probably helped that you were a little bit older when you started, so you had more patience and understanding about the process, right?
Yeah, possibly maybe would have gotten a better sound quicker if I started at the age of 6, but I have no regrets about that.
So you mentioned about your grip when you were at Berkeley when that summer when you were 15, you switched from match grip to traditional grip. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, I was just super into, I had gotten the jazz bug or the bam bug, however you want to call it. I was really into playing that. That's what I wanted to play. And my teacher at that point knew that, and he was a great drummer. His name is John Hazilla, and I think he's still up there actually at Berkeley. I think he just asked me, he's like, "You want to check this out?" And I said, "Sure." And then we started.
How was that for you? Did it feel really unnatural at first?
Yeah, it felt really unnatural. I mean, the first exercise was getting the left hand fulcrum together. And I remember that's kind of what I give students who are, switching or want to, mess with traditional grip. And that felt really, really, really unnatural. But it was starting to come into focus maybe after a few weeks,
Yeah. So were you focusing on just the thumb, keeping the other fingers off of the stick, or?
Yes, in fact, that was one thing. That was the first thing, and that was the main thing. And then the other thing was kind of getting a little molar happening. So like, remember one of the exercises he gave me was just double strokes accenting the second note. And that was really helpful. And then the other one was again, kind of another molar thing was paradiddles, 4 paradiddles in a row. So like 4 right paradiddles and then 4 left paradiddles in a row.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
And then the stone killer. So those things were starting to help me out. And I felt, I don't know, maybe within a year or so, I felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe less.
Yeah, this makes me think about one thing that I noticed when I saw you play. It was maybe the first time we met in person at the Cornelia Street Cafe. I saw you playing with Tordini and Jacob. Your brush playing was in traditional grip as well, but you were doing some really intricate finger work with the brushes. And that's something I've always wanted to ask you about, but I don't know if I've ever seen anybody else do that, or if I haven't picked up on it before, but I was sitting pretty close to you. And so can you just talk about that type of brush playing you do?
We knew each other at that point, right?
Yeah, we knew each other just a little bit because I had helped. I think I reached out to you about a broken link on your website, which eventually led to me helping you redo your website, which was a really fun project for me. Yeah, and then we were out in New York, and you happened to have a gig, so yeah, I came down to see you play. And I remember, I think that was right around the time that the first Starebaby album came out too, because you were selling that vinyl at the gig.
Yeah, I'm trying to think why those finger movements come naturally to me. And I think it might have even started before the tabla. I know the tabla has definitely influenced the left hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, for sure, 100%. But before that, I would practice these sweeps with both hands, like in and out. Say if I'm on my left hand, in, out, and then right hand, in, out. Or if I'm on my left hand, out, in, and then right hand, out, in. So different versions of doubles, different version of sweeps, like kung ga kung kung ga ga kung kung ga ga kung kung ga ga kung kung ga ga kung kung. And then I would do different, kind of grooves based on these kind of sweeps with the different directions. And so the way I played ornament strokes or fast doubles or little rough things, it has a weird kind of movement. And I think a lot of it comes from practicing that stuff. So it'd be easier to just show you and demonstrate.
Yeah. Maybe you can do a Patreon about some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, but I think that was the root of a lot of that stuff. A lot of the finger stuff was just practicing those kind of sweeps in different directions. And that led to some kind of faster, like finger movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to touch on, because you are so dedicated with your practice and everything that you do, I mean, even talking about your Patreon, you never miss. You're locked in. I think you've been doing it for a few years now, every Friday.
Yeah, 4 years. Haven't missed one.
Yeah, that's so impressive. And so, between your Patreon, your practicing, your writing, your Instagram posting, everything is so dialed in and consistent. That doesn't happen without a more holistic approach to your life. I know you started running and you're doing a half marathon very soon.
Yeah, 2 days.
Yeah, amazing. So, I know you'll finish. I'm not even going to wish you good luck with that because I know it'll go well knowing you. But good luck.
Thank you.
But I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how your whole life contributes to your ability to be so consistent. I'm thinking about, when exercise became part of your life, and I'm wondering if diet plays in a lot for you too, to make sure that you're kind of feeling consistent each day, hydration, any of that kind of life stuff that you can share anything about?
Yeah, it's kind of the way my brain is made up, both for the good and for the bad. Consistency and routine is the way I'm built. It's the way that I feel, it's a way of grounding me,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it would be nice to be looser with things, maybe take a day off here and there, but sometimes it's just the way that my brain operates. And, if anything, I've had to work on becoming a little looser with things and not so crazy, with the routine and the discipline. I've had to maybe think about sometimes going the other way, Usually when I do something, I'll do it 100%. I won't really be wishy-washy about something. If I get into something, that's it, done, game over. In terms of exercise, it was always there, and I've gone through different phases of what I've liked. There was a period where I was really into training with a boxing trainer, and there was
right.
a period where I was doing yoga, like maybe 15 years ago. I was really into Bikram yoga. Running, I've always been doing it, but I never really liked it until I started running with the pace in mind. So I'll run to, different playlists or different songs that have a different BPM range.
What kind of music do you run to?
Lately, it's just been, I have this playlist, and I have my phone. I could just probably.
Oh yeah, I'm curious.
And they're all different kind of BPM. So, okay, so my running 165. So that's kind of like a medium faster run for me, like the 165 zone. And that starts with a Radiohead song, then a Cardiac song, then a Rush song, then a Jawbreaker song, then a Neil Young, then Meshuggah, then Art Tatum, then Metallica, then Beach House, then Chris Cornell, then another Meshuggah, then Elliott Smith. So, and then it's just all about the BPM.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a slower one that's Zeppelin, Van Halen, Bob Dylan, Frank Black, then Babyface Willette, Elvis Costello, then Stanley Turrentine. And then, but lately it's really been just, it's been 3 songs. Okay.
Oh,
3,
really?
Yeah. One is just between 150 and I think it's 150, 151. It's a Meshuggah tune from the newest record. So that's what I'll do to like a slow run. And then medium one is another Meshuggah tune called Born in Dissonance, which I probably heard, I don't know how many hundreds of times I've heard these tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fast one is from the Rocky soundtrack, Going the Distance. That's a fast one. That's like 180 BPM. And then there's some other things, but those are like the main 3. So I've heard these songs hundreds, if not thousands of times at this point.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
But it's really, really fun. I'll just to keep pace and run with something, just know that I keep in check and I know roughly what my pace is going to be if I run to these songs or these playlists, So that's why with this half marathon, I'll know exactly what I need to do to get this, pace within about, barring any other circumstances, a pace within, 15 to 20 seconds a mile. I'll know what I need to run to.
Oh yeah. Have you ever done a metronome?
Yeah, I did metronome before the playlists, and I was really into that. Sometimes I'll make a cool exercise out of it. I'll have a click for every, 8 measures and see if I could keep pace. I might have it like every 7, so that way I alternate feet,
Mm-hmm.
Or every 9 or something. So I'll make little exercises out of it. And then other times I'll just run with the click on all steps,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So what about diet and food? Do you think a lot about what you put into your body to maintain sort of a consistent mindset and deal with energy levels, anxiety, that kind of thing?
I definitely pay attention to it. I'm definitely looser with it than other things in my life. I
Okay.
mean, we eat pretty well around here. We
Mm-hmm.
eat pretty balanced. I don't really snack that much, that being said, though, I don't really think about it too much. I used to do intermittent fasting a lot,
Oh, okay.
for a few years, but then I stopped doing that just because the caffeine, on the empty stomach was starting to get to me.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. But I think I eat pretty healthy, I try to, vegetables, fruits, and not
Sure.
too much sugar. And I definitely drink a lot of water. I've always done that. And I definitely, if I eat more sugar, I'll feel it. So I try not to eat that many desserts, but it's not something it's not something I obsess about. I obsess about other things in my life,
Yeah.
but not diet.
You mentioned coffee, and it's something I did want to ask you about because I was talking to Colin Stranahan about this a couple weeks ago, where he quit coffee totally during the
Yeah.
pandemic and he hasn't looked back. Is that something that you've ever dabbled in or thought about?
Well, yeah, I've been off coffee now for 6 weeks, and I was having some digestive issues, so I cut it out. Right now, I'm back on the green tea, which is definitely not as much caffeine as coffee. Even now, I'm starting to feel the green tea, the effects of the caffeine with the digestion, and it could just be a phase. So we'll see. I love coffee too much to know that it's out of my life. Definitely no way. Um, but I might be a little more sparing. Maybe I'll take more breaks in the future once I go back. I took a break in 2018 for 3 months. I was off coffee and caffeine, and it felt pretty good. But it was just something was always missing. I wasn't as productive. I didn't feel the same, joy
Mm-hmm.
in life without it. So I went back to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I didn't take a day off for 5 years. You know, I think I might have to just take more breaks.
So I want to go back to when you were younger and first getting into the drums. I'm really curious what a young Dan Weiss was like when you first started playing. Like, what was the first stuff that you were obsessed with, and how much were you practicing or playing with other people? And just, can you give me a snapshot of those early years of getting into playing drums?
I was always banging on stuff, lunchboxes before I had a drum set. Then I got a drum set when I was pretty young, and I would just play with my dad. He played guitar.
Oh,
So we
cool.
would just play together. We'd play, Zeppelin, The Who, Hendrix, Cream, things like that. Classic rock. That's what I was into when I first started, say 6, 7, 8. So we would do that. I wasn't playing with anybody else. I would just go down to the basement and really have fun on the drums. And, I was always taking lessons though, ever since I started.
What kind of stuff were you practicing like real early on? Was it snare drum stuff or drum set stuff?
Yeah, a lot of snare drum stuff, some drum set stuff. One of my teachers would just give me different grooves for different tunes.
Uh-huh.
But I remember practicing an inverted double stroke roll at one time when I was really young. Right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left.
Mm-hmm.
And then something clicked. I don't know. From that point on, I don't know. I think I gained a little speed with it, and it felt good to play. And then I think I got more into practicing, and I was probably 11, and I discovered Rush, and then I got totally obsessed with Neil Peart. So I
Oh,
was
yeah.
completely, in a rush. Just that's it. That's all I wanted to do was
Yeah,
just play
yeah.
Rush tunes, and then before that it was Zeppelins and Zeppelin Rush, and then I got really into Metallica. So I try to learn those things, and then I got really into jazz, and
Yeah, do you remember the first jazz albums you got into?
Clifford Brown and Max Roach at Basin Street, Basie Straight Ahead.
And how did you discover those? Was it through one of your teachers or your dad's collection or what?
I didn't know my teacher. His name was Jeff Krause. He lent me those things.
And what was your approach to getting into that music at that time? Were you just listening to it a lot, trying to play with it yet, doing any kind of transcribing?
Yeah, all of the above. I still have transcription books from that time.
Oh, wow,
of
wow.
Yeah, of just when I was, I don't know how old, but probably 14, 15 of Max Roach on that record. Probably way off, but still I was trying to make an attempt.
Oh, have you gone back and looked at any of that stuff to see?
Yeah, I don't think there were any stickings written in.
Mm-hmm.
There was just the rhythms and things. There was the Max, and then there was Philly Joe on Locomotion from Blue Train, and those are the first. So Max, what is this thing called Love, and then Philly Joe, Locomotion. Those are the first transcriptions I ever attempted.
And do you remember when you started, because you're so good at this now, of coming up with your own exercises based off of transcriptions or stickings? Do you remember when you first started approaching practice like that, where you were a little more self-guided?
Probably with John Riley. We did a lot of learning of the solos and comping. That was one of my primary focuses with him. So
In college?
In college, yeah. So I think at that point, I'd learn things and maybe try to do some piggyback off of it.
So how long did you study with Riley?
I studied with him for 4 years.
Oh, okay. So was he your primary private teacher during the whole time you were in school?
Yeah, he was a primary guy, and then there was other guys. He would go out of town and tour, and then he would send subs. So there was a couple other guys that I got tight with. One who you've interviewed on this show was Billy Drummond.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I used to go over Billy's house when I was 20, 21, 19, whatever, 19, 20, 21. He used to have me play with records, and we would just listen to a lot of records, and he would do blindfold tests with me, and
Oh, cool.
he would, get me to play more bass drum.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
like feathering or using it as a voice a bit more?
Just using it more. Yeah, using it a bit more. I remember Carl Allen came a couple times and subbed for John. He was on me about feathering. He was really, really good about that, and he didn't let anything slip. And I wasn't good at it at that point, so he instilled that a lot, which was great. So he came up, but I got tight with Billy. I went over Adam Nussbaum's house, a few times because Adam came and subbed for John.
Oh, cool.
Tom Rainey came and subbed. Well, I didn't really, I'm friends with Tom. He's one of my favorite, drummers around, but we didn't really have any kind of connection when he came through at Manhattan School of Music. But I had a big connection with Billy.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great. And you teach a lot now, too. I know, aside from doing your Patreon thing and some of the video courses that you have out, what kind of things do you notice in students now that you find that you're maybe not teaching over and over again, but what are sort of the common things that students come to you with then that you maybe discover that is a common theme that people need to work on or is sort of a missing link for people? So can you talk a little bit about your approach to teaching private students and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm very, it's all about what the student, like what does the student want, basically? Like, first of all, what kind of music are they into? What kind of music are they playing? What are they looking to get out of it? So those are the first things that I'll ask and think about and kind of dictate things. Now from there, say someone wants to come and learn, more vocabulary things.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that I really stress is the balance between depending on whatever kind of music you play, something I stress is the number one, the sound and trying to get the authenticity of the sound of what you're trying to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then the balance between everything, balance between the hands and the feet, and how that really is one of the determining factors in the sound and the feel of the music and the sound of the drums. And also, say someone's really like into bebop, right? And they want to expand on that. Maybe I'll really focus on just like the volume of certain things, like the volume of the snare drum against the cymbal, or the volume of the cymbal with the hi-hat, or the bass drum, feathering. So a lot of fundamental things, a lot of sound things, fundamental things that go with sound and with the feel. So I think no matter what, whoever comes in to study with me, that's definitely a priority. The sound you get on the instrument and the feel and how those dynamic roles of each of the hand and feet, how that can affect that. And then from there, it's really it's a matter of, really, it's a very, very case by case scenario with each student. I don't really go into anything with an agenda. I don't really go from student to student. I'm not going to go in with an exercise from the same student to the next student and say, check this out. This is not the way I roll, because everyone's different. Everyone has different wants and needs. And so I'm going to really do my best to address that in each lesson and for each student,
Well, I know one thing that I got from you that was really important and has stuck with me is the idea of not stopping. That was a big thing that I did and still do when I'm practicing, is that I'll be working on something or trying to play more fluidly, but I'll stop every time I make a mistake instead of playing through it.
Mm-hmm.
Just that concept alone is a really great thing to work on. And it's even something I struggle with and think about with doing this podcast and interviewing. I mean, the final edit might not sound this way, but there's a lot of times that I'll stop, want to rephrase a question instead of just flowing with it. And so that's
I've definitely I've encountered that with a bunch of students, the fluidity and the stopping when they feel like they've made a mistake or something like that. And I'll say, well, try to play through it and then maybe connect the dots and then try to see where you didn't execute what you wanted to execute. And then maybe we'll go back and we'll work on that for a while. And then maybe we'll try it again with that same idea. So yeah, that's definitely a common theme.
And sometimes the mistake is just in your own head too. So you're stopping what to the listener, they didn't know it was a mistake. And if you could figure out a way to just flow into another idea or through that idea.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an important tool, practice tool.
So another part about your practicing that I want to ask you about, the stick marks on your heads are so precise. When did that become something important and that you started working on?
Well, I remember in college, John was like, you got a lot of great rhythmic ideas and, you got a lot of cool stuff to say, but you got to get a better sound. He was just straight up with me. So I really started working on trying to get a better sound back then. And I think a lot of it maybe has to do with, hitting the drum in the center, and clarity and I like playing clear ideas, even if they're unclear, all my favorite musicians have that sense of clarity that I really like and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always wanted to project that. And a lot of it comes from the tabla practice as well. I've gone through practice sessions with my teacher or just alone or practice the same thing for many minutes or even hours, a couple hours, where it's the same thing. And it's, you hit this drum at the same place and the tabla drum in the same place. So I'm sure that has rubbed off and it influenced how I practice the drum set. Definitely. It has to. So I just find that, I'll know when the sound, if I'm playing something on the snare drum and I'll know when the sound is too overtony or too ringy. I know, bring it back to the center, get a better sound like that. And it's different when you're exploring and, trying to get different sounds out of the drums, which I like to do, or,
Mm-hmm.
Playing a press roll. Maybe you'll come from the top or you'll come from the sides. That's a different story. But, just an everyday kind of 90% of 95% of practice at minimum, I'll try. If I'm not really experimenting, I'll try to hit the drum in the center, and project, get a nice sound.
And this kind of relates to something else I wanted to ask you about with regard to ergonomics and the efficiency around the kit. And one specific thing I wanted to ask about is that your rack tom angle is fairly steep.
Yeah.
When did that start for you, and what benefit do you get out of that?
I think a lot of the ergonomic stuff came from when I, started putting the tabla compositions on the drum set. I've been working at that for a while, pretty much ever since I started tabla. I put out that first tabla drum set thing in maybe 17 years ago. So really at that point, I had to find a way to play these things with minimal motion, because some of them really require quick movement from the drums, from one drum to the other, or from the cymbal to the drum. So I think that had played a big part in the way that I set up the drums. Now everything's pretty close together. Like you said, the high tom is steep. The floor tom is angled a little bit towards the snare, so I could, if I need to play something rapidly from snare drum to floor tom, like say with my right hand, I could do that. So everything's set up to where I can get to everything very in quick quick motions.
Yeah, I remember an Instagram video of yours several years ago, too, where you were exploring a different way to even use your wrist so you could get from the tom to the cymbal without a big arm movement.
Yeah, and some of these compositions, they require that, like a phrase like da-tun, da-da-tun, da-da-tun, na. I'm going to play that with my right hand, then I'm going to play it from snare drum to right cymbal. So, ba-kum, ga-kum, ga-kum, ga. So that's a right hand kind of like wrist kind of flick. So I think a lot of it comes from that.
So I mentioned your Patreon a little while ago, and it's something I've wanted to ask you about since you've been doing it so consistently now for so many years. Has doing the Patreon and preparing content and always having to kind of keep stuff, quote unquote, camera ready, changed your own practice routine or your approach to your practice?
No, I always find something to film.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got, so many things written out or ideas but it really hasn't affected, that being said, if I present the lesson, then I don't know, I need to get it together that more than maybe I have it together. So if there's a certain topic that I'm presenting that doesn't sound that great to me, I'll shed it.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, it's maybe has an influence. But in terms of like the content, I'm okay. Yeah.
Another concept I wanted to ask you about, I heard you mention on another interview the idea that you're always striving to get better. And I'm wondering what, getting better means to you at this stage of your development where you're already at a super high level. Do you see yourself as on some kind of path towards a goal that you have for yourself and for another level you want to get to?
I guess broader range of ideas with cleaner execution, and yeah, I think maybe that's what it means. Sharper, broader range. Things I can't do, maybe I'll be able to do. Soon. So I work on those things. I always work on clarity, and I'll work on pushing myself. Things that I can't do, to just broaden up my own playing perspective. And I've been writing a lot from the drums, so. I'm broadening what I could do with the drum set also to broaden my compositional approach so I could have some different things when writing. I'll have different, things I could play the drums that serve as foundations for tunes.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody could always get better. And that might mean less perception, when you're at a certain level, but also just basic things. I want to get better. I want to be able to play a buzz roll better. I want to be able to play a double stroke roll better. I want to, get my feathering better. I want to, those basic things too.
Mm-hmm.
Want to play the hi-hat better, all those things.
So do you journal or track any of that kind of stuff? Or do you just kind of hold it all in your head and just kind of know for yourself what you want to work on week to week?
I have this huge finale file of just stuff in the last several years, that I've been working on. And, I'll stick on some things for a few months, and then maybe move on when I'm ready.
When you have something that you're working on for a couple of months, like, are you literally working on, you might decide like feathering and that's a thing you're focused on for a month, or are they more conceptual things and then the details about feathering and buzz rolls and such are more of the maintenance things you work on in between?
Yeah, those are more the maintenance things. Like for instance, I've been trying to play this thing between bass drum and hi-hat. Gumps, 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 gumps. Oh, it's this little ostinato in 7, but I'm trying to play everything in 4 on top and trying to just be free with it. All the swing ideas like over a tune, and it's really been difficult. Just keeping that dumps, 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 dumps. So trying to play things in 4/4 on top of it. So I've been at that for probably a couple months now. That's one thing, for instance.
And is that something, when you work on something like that, what is your end goal? Just to be able to do it? Or do you find that seeps into your playing? Maybe not that literal idea, but does it add to your concept or your comfort?
Yeah, it's definitely freeing, and it definitely adds to facility and just broadening of ideas. But I've there's few things that I worked on like that. Maybe for a couple of years, there was another one similar to that, with the feet, where I just wanted to be able to just do that and then just do anything I wanted on top of it. Or there's another one. It's too intricate to verbalize, but between the cymbal and the snare and the hi-hat, and then I want to be able to just improvise whatever I want with the bass drum. So there's certain things like that.
So how do you work on dynamics? Because you play a lot of different types of music. Your trio playing is a little quieter and more detailed, but then with Starebaby, you're hitting hard. I saw Starebaby play here at Ice House, and second to seeing Motorhead at First Avenue, your playing was hitting me in the chest. So I'm wondering how do you work that into your practice routine so that you're not all of a sudden booked for a Starebaby gig and it's going to shred you because you haven't been maintaining that? Do you make a point to keep that part of your playing up as well?
Yeah, if I have a Starebaby gig, and we do in June, probably a few days prior, what I'll do is I'll play quarter notes with all my limbs loud for maybe, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And that should take care of it. And then, that also helps in playing quiet. And also sometimes when you play practice super quiet, it in turn gives you more power. I don't know why. There was a period where I was just practicing like these stick control roll exercises in the back, ultra quiet. And there's like short roll combinations.
Mm-hmm.
I found that it just increased my power. And I don't know why.
Oh, yeah, and it can increase your control a lot and confidence a lot, too. I've found that when I've practiced really, really quietly.
Yeah, definitely control for sure. And maybe that's the factor. And maybe just because you're practicing these things and you're so pent up that psychologically it's just maybe easier to hit harder. But yeah, I like playing, especially with things that have accents like Wilcox, and I like playing things at a polarized dynamic level. So I'll really smack those accents and try to keep the other notes super quiet, really quiet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that's, again, what I'm talking about in terms of how that dynamic affects the feel and the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you listen to someone like Philly Joe and you listen to him play, or you listen to him trade, or you listen to him play a solo, that's one of the things that really contributes to his feel. Is the different accent level, the different dynamic levels, even just when he's playing the snare drum.
Oh, yeah. It's something Kenny Washington talks a lot about, too, and is evident in Kenny Washington's playing, is that wide gap between the soft notes and the accents.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's another person I think of with that, in relation to that, how the dynamics really affect the feel. Actually, overall swing, too, of the music.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's just me saying that I like to play things super quiet when they're called for, and that could be just rolling in rhythm as well,
Oh, sure, sure. I guess the last thing I want to ask you about is if you've ever had a big shift in why you practice. I know for me, and I mentioned this to Colin the other day, when the pandemic happened and all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, I just started gigging again and now all of a sudden there were no gigs. So, why am I even practicing? But, I still felt drawn to do it. Say there were no more gigs, or gigs dried up so much that it was just, once a month or once every couple of months. Would you still practice and be this dedicated to it?
Yeah, the gigs don't matter at all. I'm starting to play some gigs starting this Saturday, but I haven't played a gig in 2 weeks. Doesn't matter. It has no effect. During the pandemic, that's probably one of the most productive times I've ever had in my life, in terms of practice and making music. So those things don't matter to me. Gigs are going to come and go for everybody. There's going to be periods where they're more abundant, periods where there's not much happening. That really has no bearing on my practice. Now, again, if I have a gig that I need to practice for, that's a separate story.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I could probably safely say that if I had no more gigs for the rest of my life, I'd probably still work the same. It's just it's a way of life, so it's a religious kind of way of life for me. There's definitely a big component of joy and love that go into it. And that's pretty paramount. If that's not there, then maybe I wouldn't be doing it. like I do, but I do still love it. I look forward to it most days. Sometimes, some days I don't.
Yeah, so on the days that you don't or you're not feeling quite up to it, what's your practice routine like? You'll still go down and do something, right?
Yeah, I'll go down. I might be a little looser with things, but I'll still go down. And I can't remember a session where it's just been, when I've had that going into it, where it's been, I can remember there's been a couple, but usually something positive comes out of it.
Yeah, and so this reminds me that there was another question I wanted to ask about taking breaks from practice. Have you ever had a self-imposed break or taken a break for another reason?
Yeah, I took a break COVID last year, July.
Oh, yeah.
I took a break, took a self-imposed break because I felt like I was burnt out. 2008 or 9, 2 or 3 weeks of nothing. Other than that,
do you remember how you felt coming back to it? Was it more fun or more?
I remember I had a gig pretty soon after I came back. Like I was on vacation and I came back and I had a gig at the 55 bar. It was with Benny and Wayne Krantz and Tim LaFave. It felt great. The gig felt great. Then I went to practice the next day and it did not feel great. So it felt like I had lost some stuff, I don't really take many breaks, maybe a little bit, like I said at the beginning, trying to be a little easier on myself. So if I did take a break, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I just feel like it's my job. I suppose what I do. So
yeah, and you're always listening too, right? So even if you're not at the instrument, maybe the last thing I want to touch on is how listening fits into your life. Or do you have much time for focused listening, or is it just always on in the background? Because you're always posting and finding little details and snippets of things that you're plucking out to work on or share.
It's usually part of my routine, so maybe I don't get to it every day, but love listening to music. Sometimes, just because I got a kid and the stereo's not so far from a room, I got to use headphones at night, but that's sometimes when I listen to music, like later at night, or when everyone's gone, then I could really play the music at the volume I want to play it at, which is loud. Yeah, it's always just like that hunger, and that hasn't gone away yet. So, if it does, then I know I'm in trouble. Luckily, it's been there, curiosity and the eagerness and the hunger to expand and learn more hasn't left yet.
Yeah, amazing. Well, you're incredibly inspiring. Your Instagram alone is inspiring every day, and your Patreon is just so incredibly impressive. The fact that you've stuck with it, but the content is top notch. So if anybody listening isn't subscribed to your Patreon, I mean, don't sleep on that.
Thank you.
I already mentioned your Instagram. I'll put some links in the show notes, but is there anything coming up that you want to promote?
There's some gigs, but,
check your website
and a couple, there's a record of the Cam with Miguel Zanon and Matt Mitchell.
Oh, cool.
Late 2023 or early 2024. I've been writing for a new project with Miles Okazaki, Peter Evans, and Patty Brennan.
Oh, nice.
Quartet Vibes and guitar.
Is that under your name?
Yeah, it's under my name. So we have a gig at the Stone in September, but I'm probably going to record the group. Yeah, so different things. Oh, yeah, in June I'm filming, doing filming for a new course, new online drum course that will be on my website. So I've been practicing those things.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, with that, I want to thank you for your time. Like I said, you were one of the first people I thought of when I wanted to do this interview series, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. It really means a lot.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. It was great to do it, and great questions, anytime.
All right, thanks, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, take care.
Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe on your platform of choice and share it with a friend. You can find the podcast at practicingdrummer.com or on Facebook and Instagram as Practicing Drummer. Until next time, happy practicing.